This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
President-elect Trump reveals more potential cabinet picks as House Ethics Committee members meet over a potentially damning report on Matt Gaetz. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
An effort to ban transgender women from using women's restrooms inside the U.S. Capitol building.
This is not okay.
I'm Clayton Neville.
Legal limbo in New York for the Donald Trump hush money case. Julie Walker has details. Then Ben Thomas reports on the fate of 2 Wyoming abortion laws.
On Wall Street, stocks open after a mixed day yesterday, and we get earnings today from Target. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Donald Trump attends a SpaceX launch in Texas, and Democrats vote as to who will lead them as the minority party in the House. All ahead on America in the Morning. As President-elect Donald Trump continues to name people to potentially be part of his cabinet next year, the House Ethics Committee will meet later today to determine whether they'll release their investigation into charges of sexual trafficking of underage women and drug use by Trump's pick to be the next Attorney General, former Congressman Matt Gaetz. John Stolnis has the latest from Washington.
The committee was expected to make the report public last week, but Gaetz's resignation after being named Trump's pick for Attorney General scuttled it. That committee now meeting today to determine the way forward and whether to release that report. Republican and Democratic members of the Senate Judiciary Committee both say they want to see it as part of their vetting process. Democrat Dick Durbin.
The resignation of Gaetz at the last minute was clearly designed to stop the public release of this information. So it's critical. If his nomination is going forward, we want to make sure that we have access to the right documentation.
Republican Senator Josh Hawley tells CNN he spoke to Gaetz on Monday.
I mean, he just said, listen, he wants a shot to be able to lay out his vision for the department and also to respond to these various allegations. And, I said, hey, the confirmation hearing is the place and chance to do that.
And Republican Lisa Murkowski says Trump's potential nominees should not be rubber stamped.
I'm not interested in a process that would just say, well, because the president has named him and you have Republican chairs coming into the new Congress, that we just move people out. There needs to be legitimate vetting. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance and Gaetz will both be on Capitol Hill later today to meet with Republican senators to drum up support for his potential nomination. Meanwhile, in Florida yesterday, Trump was asked about Gaetz's future.
Are you reconsidering the nomination of Matt Gaetz?
No.
Stephen Miller, incoming Deputy White House Chief of Staff, speaking on Fox News, confirmed Trump will go around the Senate's advise and consent role to get his people in place if need be.
The president has won a mandate, and he will use all lawful constitutional means to fulfill that mandate on behalf of the people who voted for him in record numbers.
The president-elect also announced a few more names for his next cabinet. Billionaire wrestling mogul Linda McMahon to head the Department of Education. She previously served as Trump's head of the Small Business Administration from 2017 to 2019. Talk show host and former Pennsylvania senatorial candidate Dr. Mehmet Oz as administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and Wall Street executive Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary. He would lead Trump's tariff and trade agenda. John Stolnis, Washington.
Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives are proposing a ban on transgender women from using women's restrooms in the Capitol building. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The move comes ahead of the swearing-in of Sarah McBride, a Delaware Democrat newly elected to Congress. A transgender woman, Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace, now proposing a resolution that would ban members of Congress from using single-sex facilities other than those corresponding to their biological sex. She spoke with ABC News.
I will stand in the brink and stand in the way of anyone on the radical left who thinks that it's okay for a penis to be in a women's locker room or a bathroom or a changing room. Hell no.
House Speaker Mike Johnson on the topic.
We welcome all new members with open arms who are duly elected representatives of the people. I believe it's a command that we treat all persons with dignity and respect. We will.
To that, Mace told ABC,
forcing women to share private spaces with men is not dignity and not respect.
Johnson told reporters it's an issue that Congress really hasn't dealt with before.
We're going to do that in a deliberate fashion with member consensus on it, and we will accommodate the needs of every single person.
As for how exactly it'll be addressed, that's not clear, but Mace knows her plan.
Speaker said it would be in the House rules package. If it's not, I'll be ready with a motion, a privileged motion to force a vote on this. This is not okay. I'm a survivor of rape. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse, and I'm not going to allow any man in any female private space.
Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene said that Mace's resolution doesn't go far enough and reportedly suggested that she might get into a fight if McBride were to use women's restrooms. Meanwhile, McBride calling all the back and forth over her January 3rd swearing in a distraction. She said, quote, every day Americans go to work with people who have life journeys different than their own and engage with them respectfully. I hope members of Congress can muster that same kindness. I'm Clayton Neville.
Today's top stories are brought to you by Sleep Number. Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed? It's the only bed that lets you make each side firmer or softer whenever you want. Save 40% on the Sleep Number Special Edition smart bed. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com. Abortion laws struck down in this western state. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. A strong storm in the Pacific Northwest will bring rain and snow. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
An impressive storm centered off the west coast will continue to produce a broad zone of steady rain for many from the San Francisco Bay Area northward to around Portland, Oregon, and into parts of south central Washington. The rain can be rather heavy at times from the southern Oregon coast through much of northwestern California, but even places like Sacramento should be able to get into hours of rain today. In addition, mountain snow can be expected from the northern Sierra Nevada into the Cascades, possibly heavy at times in Washington, with showers extending right to the coast. Periods of rain and high elevation snow extend as far to the east as western Montana through the day, and as the pattern stays in place, look for at least 2 to 4 inches of rain through Friday morning along the coast from Washington through northern California, with the highest rain totals of 8 to 12 inches from far southwestern Oregon to near coastal northern California, including cities such as Eureka. Most areas from the eastern half of Montana through central California and points eastward to the northern high plains, the central and southern plains, and even the south look dry today. However, rain and wind from tropical rainstorm Sarah will be carried across Florida today with 1 to 2 inches of rain in spots, as well as winds gusting over 40 miles per hour for a time near the coast from the Panhandle to perhaps the Tampa metro area. The other main player in today's weather will be a complex disturbance setting up across the east. Well, a pair of low-pressure centers will develop with this feature, in addition to the one that will continue to spread snow from the eastern Dakotas across much of the upper Midwest. This storm will bring the most significant rain in months for many, plus the season's first snow for some. In Pittsburgh, periods of rain develop this afternoon after a high of 68. For Phoenix, expect lots of sunshine today with a high reaching 78. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
I'm John Trout. Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. New York City's top prosecutor says his office will oppose dismissing Donald Trump's hush money conviction, which could leave the outcome of the case in the hands of the judge. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
In a court filing Tuesday, the Manhattan DA's office says Donald Trump's upcoming presidency is not grounds for dropping his hush money case that was already tried. But given the need to balance competing constitutional interests, prosecutors say consideration must be given to potentially freezing the case until after he's out of office. Trump was convicted in May of falsifying business records to cover up a scheme to influence the 2016 election by paying hush money to Stormy Daniels, who said they had sex. Trump denies the allegations. The judge has not said when he will decide, and in pausing proceedings, delayed ruling on Trump's earlier bid to reverse his conviction because of the Supreme Court decision in July giving presidents broad immunity from criminal prosecution. Julie Walker, New York.
A pair of Wyoming abortion laws have been struck down, including one that banned emergency contraception pills. Correspondent Ben Thomas reports.
A state judge has ruled Wyoming's overall ban on abortion and its prohibition on the use of medication to end a pregnancy violate women's rights under the state's constitution. Teton County District Judge Melissa Owens had blocked the laws from taking effect in previous orders. The decision marks another victory for abortion rights advocates after voters in 7 states passed measures in support of access. 13 states are currently enforcing bans on abortion at all stages of pregnancy, with limited exceptions. 4 have bans that kick in at or about 6 weeks, often before women realize they're pregnant. I'm Ben Thomas.
A check of gas prices leading into the Thanksgiving holiday, and meet Howard Lutnick. Those stories next. America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. CNBC's Jessica Ettinger has Wednesday Business.
Wall Street opens this morning after a mixed day for stocks. Investors started the trading day yesterday spooked after Russia said it had been attacked by Ukraine with U.S. long-range missiles, and it threatened a possible nuclear response.
Russia versus Ukraine is not the story. It hasn't moved the markets for almost 3 years now. Yes, it did in the very start. Now, I don't want to jinx it, and then something unthinkable happens. But for now, that is the case, that this is a market that's likely to power through that. Cerity Partners' Jim Lebenthal on CNBC. The Dow opens this morning after a 120-point drop yesterday. Walmart shares hit a record high yesterday. It raised its outlook again. Consumers shopping for cheaper groceries are starting to spend in other parts of the store. But Walmart and many retailers are worried about the Trump tariffs, a tax on everything coming into the U.S., which would be passed on to average U.S. consumers. And CNBC's Sarah Eisen spoke with Walmart's CFO John Rainey about it.
The retail sector as a whole continuing to grapple with what President-elect Trump's proposed tariffs could mean for prices. A Walmart spokesperson reacting this morning saying, quote, "We're concerned that significantly increased tariffs could lead to increased costs for our consumers." Rainey echoing that sentiment. When we talked, he said incremental tariffs will be inflationary for the consumer, and that the past 7 years they've lived under the China tariffs have proved that very point to be true.
CNBC's Sarah Eisen. Nearly 3/4 of Americans, 72%, will travel somewhere by car for Thanksgiving a week from tomorrow. Gas Buddy says this is a big leap from last year's 41%. Partly thanks to prices at the pump at multi-year lows right now. Drivers in at least 29 states are paying sub $3 a gallon gas.
You have more on Donald Trump's selection for Commerce Secretary.
The pick is Cantor Fitzgerald's CEO. Howard Lutnick is a Wall Street veteran and a billionaire.
Howard Lutnick, the co-leader of Trump's transition, has been tapped to be Commerce Secretary. Now, this takes him out of the race for Treasury Secretary, the one we've been most focused on. And this is a job that will put him atop a really huge agency. He will have some responsibilities over trade and export controls. He'll have some trade responsibilities, but others as well. It's a really broad agency that also oversees the CHIPS Act, the Weather Service, the Census.
CNBC's Megan Casella. On today's watch list, we get earnings from a biggie, NVIDIA, plus more retailers like TJ Maxx and Marshall's parent TJX companies, and we'll hear from Target today. We also find out how many people applied for mortgages last week. The Powerball jackpot tonight is $155 million. And the Country Music Association Awards show is set for Nashville on ABC. It's called Country's Biggest Night.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, Youth Center worker trial gets underway after these messages. You're with America in the Morning. There will be no change in the Democrat leadership in the House of Representatives. House Democrats voted unanimously to re-elect Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Axios is reporting that Democrats are making few changes to their top leadership ranks, despite falling short of their goal of winning a House majority November 5th. House Democratic Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar of California and Minority Whip Catherine Clark of Massachusetts were both re-elected. Republicans will have a clear majority in Congress and the executive branch in January when Donald Trump takes office. A trial is getting underway in New Hampshire for a youth center worker accused of violence against someone in his care. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
A trial begins for a man accused of holding down a teenage boy so colleagues could rape and abuse him at a New Hampshire youth center in the 90s. It's the second criminal trial to stem from a broad 2019 investigation into historic abuse at the Sununu Youth Services Center in Manchester. Bradley Asbury, now 70 years old, is among 9 men who worked at the Manchester Center or an associated facility in Concord who are facing criminal charges. Asbury is charged with 2 counts of being an accomplice to aggravated sexual assault. If found guilty, he faces a maximum prison term of 20 years on each count. I'm Haya Panjwani.
America in the Morning continues.
3, 2, 1.
A SpaceX Starship rocket splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico Tuesday after the company aborted its second attempt to catch the returning booster at the launch pad. However, the company did succeed in relighting the spacecraft's Raptor engine while in space, a first for the Starship system, which it sees as a critical capability for missions in orbit. This was the 6th test flight for Starship, which is composed of the Super Heavy booster and the Starship spacecraft, a launch attended by Elon Musk and President-elect Donald Trump. America in the Morning for Wednesday, November 20th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour, Trump's cabinet coming together, pick for Attorney General still under scrutiny.
The apparent legal advantages of winning the presidency. I'm Clayton Neville.
FEMA's administrator says she supports an investigation of alleged anti-Trump bias in hurricane relief efforts. Ed Donahue, Washington.
A bomb cyclone descending on Northern California. I'm Bob Brown. That story just ahead.
After months of little to no rain, New York City issuing a drought warning. Julie Walker, New York.
The DOJ may force Google to sell Chrome. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
The fast-tracked, highly anticipated series Suits LA gets a premiere date. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. Rain will continue for portions of the East Coast into Friday. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
As a large disturbance continues on its path toward the East Coast through the day today, a rather broad zone extending from the northern plains to parts of the southeastern states is in line for some precipitation. Residents of the northern plains and the upper Midwest, especially from the eastern Dakotas across Minnesota and northwestern Wisconsin, can expect snow showers or even some steady snow for a time, with mixed rain and snow from northern Iowa to the western upper peninsula of Michigan. However, the storm will become better organized through the day, with an area of low pressure likely developing over the eastern Great Lakes that will bring increasingly steady rain over much of lower Michigan and Ohio as the day progresses, perhaps even some gusty downpours as far east as western Pennsylvania by sunset. This will be the start of the most vigorous rainfall event in months for many in the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic, with rain increasing in coverage and intensity tonight in cities like New York and Philadelphia that continue to run severe rainfall deficits. The much-needed rain can even fall hard enough through the night to bring ponding to area roadways. The storm also will have a snowy side to it, as the potent storm will be able to pull in the coldest air of the season for many, in stark contrast to the rather mild start to this month, with snow totaling 3 to 6 inches or more through Friday in the high ground from the Appalachians into the Adirondacks and even northern New England. Not to be outdone, an extremely strong storm continues to sit off the west coast today, funneling in even more Pacific moisture to fuel intense rainfall from southwestern Oregon to the northern part of the San Francisco Bay Area. The highest rainfall totals around Northern California can reach 8 to 12 inches through Friday morning. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Donald Trump continues to bring together his cabinet. The president-elect has named WWE wrestling executive Linda McMahon as his pick for education secretary. Physician and TV star Dr. Oz to serve as administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and Wall Street's Cantor Fitzgerald CEO Howard Lutnick to become Commerce Secretary. Questions remain on Trump's choice for Attorney General. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports on an allegation that AG designate Matt Gaetz had sex with a 17-year-old. Audio courtesy CBS News.
They do want the public to know that they are not lying. They did not come forward willingly. They've never spoken to anyone without the force of a legal subpoena. The testimonies of her and the other 11 individuals that testified would show that this actually did happen, and the American people would know, and they could decide if that's the person they want to be the next Attorney General of the United States.
Her lawyer says one woman testified to the House Ethics Panel she saw Attorney General designate Matt Gaetz have sex with a 17-year-old. The lawyer represents two women who told the panel Gaetz, who was a congressman at the time, paid them for sex.
She arrived at the party. She had sex with Representative Gaetz within minutes of her arrival. Later on, when she was walking out to the pool area, she observed to her right Representative Gaetz having sex with her friend who was 17 at the time.
And on this question, she's absolutely sure.
She's absolutely certain that she observed seen her friend and Representative Gaetz.
The Ethics Committee has been investigating Gaetz over allegations of sex trafficking involving a 17-year-old. It's a probe that effectively ended last week when Gaetz resigned from Congress after he was nominated to head the Justice Department. He's denied any wrongdoing, but
the resignation of Gaetz at the last minute was clearly designed to stop the public release of this information. So it's critical. If his nomination is going forward, we want to make sure that we have access to the right documentation.
Senate Judiciary Chair Dick Durbin, a Democrat, says the committee must have the House panel's information as it considers Gaetz' nomination. Several Senate Republicans have refused to say if they back Gaetz.
I think it would be helpful. Everybody's talking about it. It apparently was just about done. I think it would be helpful. I'm not part of the decision-making process. I'm one vote. I think it'd be helpful.
A Trump transition spokesperson says a Justice Department probe cleared Gaetz of any wrongdoing. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
President-elect Donald Trump's transition into his second term in the White House is wading into uncharted legal territory. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's team of prosecutors is asking Judge Juan Merchan to postpone the sentencing in President-elect Trump's hush money conviction surrounding porn star Stormy Daniels and others. They want to strategize as Trump's lawyers try to get the case dropped with the president-elect status. Bragg spoke at the time after the jury came down with its verdict.
Their deliberations led them to a unanimous conclusion beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, Donald J. Trump, is guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree to conceal a scheme to corrupt the 2016 election.
Trump adamantly denied the charges.
This is a very dangerous day for America. It's a very sad day.
Bragg did make a point after the verdict came down to say,
and while this defendant may be unlike any other in American history, we arrived at this trial in the same manner as every other case that comes through the courtroom doors.
Fast forward to Trump's transition to power after beating Vice President Kamala Harris in the election, and Bragg's office now entering a whole new ball game. Prosecutors said they would challenge Trump's efforts to drop the case, but agreed they're in uncharted waters when it comes to sentencing a president. In fact, Bragg's office reportedly acknowledged that Trump's sentencing might have to happen after his term in office. Meanwhile, a Georgia appeals court this week canceled oral arguments on the appeal of a lower court ruling that lets Fulton County DA Fani Willis stay on the case of election interference that she brought against Trump. No explanation as to why that hearing was called off, and special counsel Jack Smith, who led multiple Trump investigations, planning to finish his work and resign in coming weeks before Trump takes office. I'm Clayton Neville.
The head of FEMA was on the hot seat, grilled by a House committee over concerns of political bias. Correspondent Ed Donahue has that story.
There is a FEMA official who spoke under the condition of anonymity who says that the agency's practice of skipping Trump-supported houses or avoiding white or conservative-dominated disaster zones altogether is an open secret at the agency and has been going on for years.
We have investigated this incident, and it is still under investigation. We are working with the Inspector General to determine whether or not this is broader than this, but the evidence that I have seen so far shows that this was an isolated incident and it has not gone beyond what this one employee did.
On Capitol Hill, Deanne Criswell says a critical function in hurricane relief efforts is to go door to door to tell people what resources are available. In one recent case,
this employee wrote to about 11 staff members under her supervision that they should, quote, avoid homes advertising Trump, end quote. My senior leadership team provided me with this visual evidence that the employee had in fact issued these instructions, and they recommended that this employee be terminated. And I concurred and directed the termination of this employee.
Criswell says that employee has been fired.
There is nothing in our policies, in our procedures, in our training that would direct any employee to bypass anybody's home based on their political party. I cannot speak to what her motivations were, but this came to my attention again on November 7th. I directed my team to get me information. They gave me factual information on November 9th, which is when I directed the termination of this employee.
She does not believe this is part of any widespread cultural problem at FEMA and welcomes an investigation.
Our goal is to help all people obtain all of the assistance that they need and that they are eligible for under the law.
A different team was sent into the field to contact all the homes that were skipped over at the employee's direction. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Among the stories we're covering next, severe weather predicted in the Pacific Northwest, drought in New York City. We'll have details when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. I'm John Trout. You're with America in the Morning. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, a dozen states or more are expected to see snow or a wintry mix, including in the Midwest, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, portions of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and northern Kentucky. Then heading out to the west in Northern California and the Pacific Northwest, there's a potential historic weather event taking shape, which could bring feet of rain and snow and the likelihood of storm damage. Bob Brown has the latest on the bomb cyclone.
We're talking rainfall totals 10 to 20 inches possible with feet of snow, several feet of snow in the highest terrain.
A bomb cyclone, an atmospheric river, call it what you want. The bottom line is Northern California is in for the strongest storm of the year, and it's expected to last through Friday. Louise Fody is a warning coordination meteorologist at the National Weather Service.
Heavy rainfall, heavy snowfall, and certainly high gusty winds, possibly up to hurricane strength winds.
Feet of rain and feet of snow in the Cascades will produce power outages and catastrophic flooding.
It's going to likely to result in significant flash flooding and landslides.
The areas which could see the heaviest of the precipitation will likely be south of Portland and north of San Francisco. San Francisco could see up to 8 inches of rain. Meantime, Southern California continues to be hot and dry. I'm Bob Brown.
On the flip side of all that rain and potential snow, for the first time in more than 20 years, New York City is issuing a drought warning to its more than 8 million residents. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
After months of little to no rain, New York City issuing a drought warning, the first in 22 years. And as supplies run low on drinking water, will restart the flow of an out-of-service aqueduct. Mayor Eric Adams.
It's hard to believe that we'll be talking about brush fires and droughts in New York City.
The city also cutting back and pausing the Delaware Aqueduct repair project.
If we pull together and save water together, we'll be able to ride this through. And we can avoid a more serious drought that will require further restrictions in the city.
At the same time, the governor issued a statewide drought watch and elevated more than a dozen counties to drought warning status. Julie Walker, New York.
A concerning report from a United Nations watchdog agency regarding Iran and its nuclear plans. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma is following that story.
According to a confidential report by the UN's nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, Iran has further increased its stockpile of uranium enriched to near weapons-grade levels in defiance of international demands. The IAEA says as of October 26, Iran has nearly 402 pounds of uranium enriched up to 60%, an increase of 1/10 since the last report in August. The IAEA also estimates in its quarterly report Iran's overall stockpile stands at over 14,500 pounds, a further substantial increase. Uranium enriched at 60% purity is just a short technical step away from weapons-grade levels of 90%. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Alphabet, owned by parent company Google, may be forced by the DOJ to sell off the world's most popular internet browser, Google Chrome. Get your checkbook ready. You could be the new owner. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech Report.
The U.S. Department of Justice will ask a judge to force Alphabet's Google to sell off its Chrome internet browser. Google is already the world leader in search and owns the #1 internet browser, Google Chrome. The move has been seen as one of the most aggressive attempts by the Biden administration to curb what it alleges are big tech monopolies. The upcoming Trump administration may play a role in this as well, as Trump has vowed to take revenge against Google for what he perceived was bias against him. Prosecutors have floated several ideas as remedies for this case. One where Google may pay billions of dollars to its nearest competitor, Apple, or divesting part of its business, such as Chrome and the Android operating system. In a statement from Google, Leanne Mulholland, Vice President of Regulatory Affairs, said that the DOJ is pushing a radical agenda that goes far beyond the legal issues in this case, and it would harm consumers. For updated tech news, follow me on X at Chuck Palm.
With a check of Wednesday sports, here's America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
NBA, the streak is over. The Cavaliers lost to the Celtics 120-117, ending their 15-0 start to the season. The defending champs led by as many as 21, but had to hang on. 33 for Jason Tatum.
It's simple. We just locked in on defense. We've been in that situation a million times where it's like, it's time to win. It's time to lock in, guard your yard, help each other on defense, get a stop, go down on offense, and find out who we're trying to attack.
All of last night's games, part of the NBA Cup. The Nuggets rocked the Grizzlies. Russell Westbrook became the first player to amass 200 career triple-doubles. Mavericks, Lakers, Spurs, and Nets also won. College basketball, an upset. Number 6 Purdue lost at number 15 Marquette. Wins for top-ranked Kansas, number 2 Connecticut, and 9th-ranked Kentucky. The latest college football playoff table is out. The top 5 teams remain the same. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and Indiana. But the 12-team grid was shaken up. The Ducks and the Longhorns get the first 2 byes, along with Miami and Boise State, leaders of the ACC and Mountain West, respectively. Big 12 leader BYU hangs on to the 12 seed after suffering its first loss, while the Buckeyes, Nittany Lions, and Hoosiers would host first-round games as it stands right now, along with Notre Dame. Baseball awards, Managers of the Year, Stephen Vogt of the Guardians and Pat Murphy of the Brewers each took his team to a division title in his first season as a big league skipper. 12 of the 13 players who received qualifying offers rejected them and are now free agents. Only Reds right-hander Nick Martinez took the $21 million one-year guarantee. NHL, the Jets back on track with a 6-3 win over the Stanley Cup champion Panthers. Mark Scheifele had a hat trick, Winnipeg snapping a 2-game skid. They're 16-3 on the year. Wins for the Wild, Oilers, Lightning, Flames, Ducks, and Rangers. That's Wednesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. You like Suits? Get ready for Suits LA when America in the Morning returns after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. The ride normally lasts just a few minutes, but for 22 people at California's Knott's Berry Farm, the Soul Spin ride became an airborne holding cell after the attraction suddenly stopped working, leaving many riders hanging sideways for over 2 hours. A crane was brought in so technicians could get it back in gear, but workers had to crank the ride down slowly. Those stuck on the ride left without serious injury, but some needed to use wheelchairs and others were visibly limping. 2 riders were taken to a hospital for evaluation. NBC Television says the West Coast version of Suits, called Suits LA, will soon hit prime time. Kevin Carr reports.
On Tuesday, NBC announced its primetime mid-season schedule. One of the most anticipated shows is Suits LA, a spin-off of the courtroom drama that aired on USA Network from 2011 to 2019. While it was a modest hit on the cable network during its original run, Suits blew up last year as a favorite binge watch on Netflix and Peacock.
Merry Christmas.
Is this for real? You know what to do.
Suits LA takes place in the same universe as the original Suits, but it's not a direct sequel. The show follows Stephen Amell as a lawyer specializing in criminal and entertainment law. Amell also announced the premiere date in his own way on TikTok.
Sunday, February the 23rd, 9 p.m. NBC! It's a thing. Suits LA.
Suits LA will premiere immediately following a 2-hour episode of The Americas, a nature documentary narrated by Tom Hanks. Other big shows include the One Chicago franchise owning Wednesday nights with a 3-hour block of Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, and Chicago PD. Also, The Voice comes back at 8 p.m. on Monday, February 3rd, featuring the return of Adam Levine as a judge.
Live from New York, it's Saturday night!
And finally, Saturday Night Live will celebrate its 50th anniversary. The not ready for primetime players will have a live primetime special, not on Saturday, but on Sunday, February 16th. I'm Kevin Carr.
Finally today, while there has been talk of some people leaving the United States after Donald Trump's election victory, one European country seems to be seeing the Trump election as an opportunity. A town on the island of Sardinia in Italy has long tried to persuade outsiders to consider a life-changing move. The small town of Ololai, with a population of just over 1,000 that has many abandoned properties, has launched a website aimed at would-be American expats, offering to sell homes for as low as $1 and up to $105,000 to would-be buyers. The catch? All of these homes would need renovations. Some would have to be rebuilt. The mayor says the town's website has been flooded with 38,000 requests of information on houses, mostly coming from the United States. And for those of us with our feet firmly planted here, America in the Morning for Wednesday, November 20th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer, Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.